Yes, I can see it. Okay, great.
Alright.
So let's set up a few things first. If you want to press pause. Okay, so a couple things. If you want to go to the eye on the bottom left of your screen,
Yeah.
yeah, open that up. Hit the scoreboard.
This.
The
Oh, this one.
scoreboard? Yeah, okay, close it.
Sorry.
And then. No, sorry. I meant leave it up, yeah. And then click the eye again. Um,
uh,
and then if you look near your champion, there's a little triangle next to the movement speed.
where?
To the right of the movement speed stat. You see that little triangle on your screen where it says 698 right now? Yeah, okay, perfect. So basically, like, going into a game, things start as early as level 1, right? So,
Yeah.
um, are you familiar with Xerath, or did you like pick him randomly, or how much do you? Yeah,
I've been having some success with him in the mid lane, so I just
cool.
thought, why not blind pick him every time?
Got it. Okay. So, before we start, like, what are you thinking about before you go into this game? Like, what are you planning for?
Do you mean like rune wise or just matchup wise?
Anything, because it helps me understand like what factors you're taking into account. Maybe there's certain things that you haven't thought about. Just wanted to gauge like your current level of knowledge, that kind of thing.
Well, what I figured with this matchup is that no
Yeah.
matter what, I cannot step forward in this lane because they have a Vianney. If I get CC once and the jungle is there, I
Mm,
just die. And that is what happened in this game. But
got
we'll
it.
go over that. I went first strike mostly because I thought I would win the matchup just by outright poking her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd be able to out damage her, but it didn't go like that.
No worries.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know. I just
Yeah. No,
thought
that's
I
totally
just thought
that's fine. Just wanted to understand what you're thinking about. Cool. So, yeah. So, like even in champ select, there are certain things that you can plan for, right? Like your runes sort of set you up for how you want to play the lane, right? Like if you
yeah,
think you can aggressively walk up and get a lot of poke, there's the route of like Comet. You can go Comet Scorch kind of route. But if you're
yeah,
trying to like
definitely.
passively farm to get gold and scale up and play with your team towards the mid game, the first strike route is also totally great too. First strike in general is pretty safe for like a Xerath, but then you have to think about like, okay, is my team gonna team fight? What's our win conditions? Like, am I just going to be outputting damage? Like, you want to think about like how you want to play into the mid game, for example. Um,
Yeah.
and just looking at your team, you guys have a pretty awful 5v5 compared to them.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so you're constantly going to be aiming to either, if the game goes according to plan, look for that more siege type of mid-game play where you guys rotate around the map. You've got a Caitlyn. You want to push that bot lane advantage that she hopefully gets, kind of thing. So, in an ideal state, that's kind of stuff that I think about. There's also the jungle matchup, right? You've got a Graves who generally likes to scrap, right? Like he's a very scrappy jungler, likes to invade, likes to do early plays, maybe less on the
hmm
ganking side, more on the farming side. So knowing that you won't get that jungle support, thinking about like, okay, how do I create openings in my lane to enable my jungler to do what he wants is how I would think about like the early to mid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
really you're talking about how I want to situate the wave.
exactly.
Yeah.
Not just the wave, but even just having like before you get into the game, having an idea of like, okay, well, I think the game is going to go this way,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm flexible, but this is my plan A, and then this is my plan B. So like, yeah, cool. Your runes seem fine. I mean, boots, pots, like you want to get a bit more of an extended laning phase because you have TP, so that totally makes sense. Conversely, Xerath is very easily diveable, kind of like you said. So like
Mm-hmm.
a barrier or a heal or even exhaust, sometimes is valid
Oh,
too. Yeah.
that would have been so good in 20 actually. Yeah, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Um, I do think teleport is great if you utilize it in the early levels. So the way
Yeah.
you kind of utilize it is by, you know, shoving, helping your jungler get scuttles, trading your HP for some of that lane pressure, and then TPing back because she probably can't kill you that easily early. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyways, let's press play, and we can see how things play out. Also, feel free to ask me questions at any time. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just talking at you. I want to
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
opportunities to ask me things too.
Well, one of my biggest problems in this game
Sure.
was that um I don't actually remember the game that well, but I couldn't really
Hmm.
face off against any. How do I lock it onto my champ?
Double click or on the bottom left, you see where it says manual camera. There you go. Now it's on you. That's good.
All
That's
right.
good. Yep.
You still want the scoreboard
Let's
on?
turn off fog of war. You see on the left. There you go. Oh, wait. Did that do what it was intended? Turn it back on. That's really weird. Oh, sorry. Okay. Um, you see where it says all? Click on the blue. Yeah, there you go. So, pressing pause for a second. The reason I did that is because there are certain things that you can make assumptions about, right? Like even at this phase, and I don't want to bias it with having all the knowledge. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, press play again, and I can watch like the first few levels.
I'm fairly sure I didn't want to touch the wave because I wanted it to push into me first.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good thing to do
Well,
with a wave? But
I
what
think
in a
again,
matchup
like
like
it's
this?
fine. It depends on how you think the early levels go. Like naturally, you're gonna outrange her, so I think it's safe to play either way. As long as you know where Vi is, right? You can play more
Yeah, but
aggressively. Hmm.
that's my only problem. If
Hmm.
I walk up to Van Lane and he flash Qs me or flash W me, I'm stunned. I'm just dead if I's there. That's why
Sure.
I was always scared to walk up.
Sure. So let's break that down a little bit, right? Like your strength in this lane is that you outrange the Annie, right? If you're not
Yeah.
going to use that to your advantage, you're not really playing to your strength. You know what I mean? So, for
Yeah.
example, you're afraid of Vi, and that's a totally valid fear. But what do you think? What do you think Vi is planning to do this game? Right? Let's think about that. What's Vi gonna
Well,
do?
I would assume she started blue, of course, so she's pathing top.
Hmm.
She's probably playing for a top side because it's quite a volatile matchup. I
Okay.
can't see her ever ganking my lane because yeah, we traded flashes here.
Okay. So she is pathing
Yeah, like
bot to top, right? So that means the first thing you should be aware of is thinking about where should I put this ward that I've got that might give me some information into what Vi is thinking about doing. So,
my pro
mhm,
can I just tell you my
yeah,
problem with that? If I try walking up to this bush and he would just abuse me.
yeah. So let's rewind, right? Let's go back all the way to 1 minute. So pause for a second. What are you doing right at this moment?
Nothing.
What could you be doing at this moment?
Standing here
So there's a few options.
or
Okay,
here.
so let me give you a suggestion here. So the best place to be when you're coming out of the gates, that means like right when the game starts, is in the lane bush. So for example, if you go all the way back to when the game, you don't have to do it right now, but right after you get out of the gates, before the game starts, running into that lane bush, because chances are teams that are invading want to go through the river. They won't check that bush unless they're also doing the same. If you can get into that bush and you can relatively know, okay, top side, if I go toward the top side, the worst thing that can happen is I will run into a level 1 Vi and a level 1 Aatrox. that is an okay situation for you. You don't have to do anything crazy. You could walk into that, throw a ward down, and walk away.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do that, that's totally valid. And I would suggest doing that around like this time because you're not really up to anything, right? So there's a couple things Vi could do, right? She could do a blue side clear into a level 3 gank, or she could do single camps, meaning blue, gromp, red, stuff like that, and level 3 ganking from top, right? Either way, the dangerous option is the topside gank, right? So
Hmm.
putting that ward down around like, I don't know, 115, 120, 125, all of those times, you're probably pretty safe to do that. And where I recommend is there's a couple options for you to put this ward down. One, if you're afraid of going deep, placing it in the pixel brush. Do you know which one the pixel brush is?
Yeah.
I actually can't see your mouse, so that's kind of weird. But the one in the
Oh.
river, yeah, the one in the middle of your screen, that's the pixel brush.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you ward in that pixel brush, you get to see any path that Vi could possibly take to gank you. Because if
Yep.
she comes down from red, you're gonna see the ramp. If she goes over the wall and is doing scuttle or something, you're gonna see that too. So that's the best place to ward early. That's one recommendation I might make. The same goes for the other side of the map, right? Like let's say you know their jungler started red and they're pathing bot side, pixel brush
Yeah.
bot side, best place to throw down a ward. And your first ward is free. Like I mean all your wards are free, really, right? So throwing
Yeah.
down that
Definitely.
ward is very helpful, and that might help you to play. It gives you knowledge to play those first few levels, for example. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I normally do, because sometimes when I
Mm-hmm.
have lane prior and I push the wave up, like the third wave, I would walk. You can't see my mouse, but you can tell where I'm about to ward, like the center of the
Mm-hmm.
screen,
Mm-hmm.
between those two. Is that a good place to ward?
It's not bad. It's any vision is always good vision, I'd say. So I'm not. It's not bad. I would say that the better one to put is that pixel brush ward.
Yeah. All right.
There are mid laners who, for example, plan to push hard shove the first two waves, and then they'll ward the Raptors. That is
Yeah.
also a valid strategy, and we could talk about some of that and why they do that in a moment.
All right. Shall
Yeah,
I play?
yeah, you can let it play.
All right.
Waves ganks.
He actually didn't. I didn't realize he was ganking. If I realized before, that was such a free kill.
I
He
also
didn't
would
think.
say that you could have saved your flash there because the pressure that you get from the gank is already a win.
Yeah, but if my flashy did hit, it was a
Mm-hmm.
kill.
Let's go back. I'm not trying
All
to
right.
argue with you. I'm just trying to say like if we go back, let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's double check that. So I don't think you went back far enough. I think. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Back, back, back. Right. So here, right? There's the gank. Graves auto Q auto. He's on cooldown. What else does he have?
Oh.
That's it. He's done. Right.
Yeah.
So
It was.
actually, he's just walking away from the play, and he got you prio. So what you should be thinking about in this moment is that you have about 40 seconds before that scuttle spawns. Now that you have lane prio, and you know that Vi is topside, maybe Graves is trying to fight for the top scuttle, and you can unlock that fight for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh. Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
I honestly, as a mid laner, I never really think about helping my team out for score. I've never done it before.
Gotcha.
It's
Yeah.
why I
So.
put me so low.
um, so scuttle fights, right? Like, why are they important? It's not even so much the scuttle itself that is important, right? It's like the combat ability there. So, for example, let's think about why it's important in this case, right? It's important because it's an opportunity for Graves to get more momentum, more pressure. You guys controlling the river makes Vi have to second guess going into that river in the future too, right?
Yeah.
So like establishing some of that dominance. And right now, the amazing thing is you have TP advantage as well. So right now, you should really, really, really be pushing that advantage in any way possible because you have tempo, you have TP advantage, Andrew Graves is padding top. So you're basically at this moment your team is winning on the top side of the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also your Teemo has priority. So this scuttle should be Graves is 100% unless he decides not to go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Because if I'm shoved in here, right,
hmm
and we're fighting for Scuttle Crab, how am I? Do I just not help if I'm shoved in?
So you're saying wave management, right? Let's rewind completely and talk about the wave management piece. So League of Legends is split into like so many different concepts, right? Like there's XP tracking, there's wave management, there's roaming, there's timers, there's like trade patterns, there's cooldown, like there's so many things, right? So
Yeah.
so far we've just been talking about like game state, right? And how you choose to make certain decisions based on the game state. Wave management is another layer of decision making into
Yeah.
when you want to think about it, right? So let's rewind to the beginning and talk about the waves and how that stuff works. Um, let's go back
Wait,
to
what?
like 130, yeah, 130, 135.
It's gonna be a lot of rewind.
Yeah. So how familiar are you with like EXP tracking and what that means?
Do you mean like when I hit level 2, level 3?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the main
Well,
two. hmm
what I know is this wave and 1 minion after level 2,
Right.
and the same goes for next. It
Level
would be this.
three. Yeah. So if you know exactly when you're hitting those level breakpoints, it's important to know level three because that gives you access to your full kit, right? So at
Yeah.
level three, you have all three abilities, and that's when Xerath really starts to get oppressive, right? Because you can W on top of them, and then guarantees your Q, right? So your trade
Yeah, yeah.
pattern starts to become more potent the more levels you get, right? So actually, Xerath, as a viable strategy here, you could pressure Annie for that first level too, because your Q can hit the entire wave here, right? So if you wanted to, I'm not saying you have to every game. One thing you could try is queuing the entire wave here, right? And setting yourself up for that level 2 power play where you start to poke this Annie down. This also assumes you already kind of know what Vi is trying to do, right? So that's why that ward is so important, right?
Oh
Because if you
yeah,
have
that
that
ward.
ward, you know that you can now push this wave and bully this Annie with your range advantage. So all those
Yeah.
little things start to like layer onto your decision making. Um, and once you get level 2, you want to understand like wave management at that point, right? So, do you know like waves, the general behavior of waves?
As in like even minion rule, stuff like that.
Yeah, so like one thing is counting the minions, right? Like understanding what's happening to this wave right now, right? As a mid laner, the most important thing you should be asking yourself is what is happening to this wave and what do I want to do to this wave, right? So, for instance, let's say you warded red. Let's say you warded that pixel brush. You have vision, and you want to bully this Annie on the first 2 to 3 levels, right? The strategy is throw the ward down, W or Q the crap out of this wave, shove it in, and let the third wave bounce. So by wave behavior, what I'm saying is that every 3 waves is a cannon wave. If you leave that cannon wave alone and let it crash into the tower, it will bounce back in your direction. You want to use that
Yeah.
to your advantage, right? So, what I'm trying to say there is like, let's say you shove in the first wave, you hit level 2, you're poking the Annie down, she can't really manage the wave back. Then at level 3, you're bouncing the wave back and you outrange the crap out of her. So you can continue to poke her even if she gets that level 3 first. But once you back off, you kind of have the wave in this middle position. It's going to be on your side.
Mhm.
It's hard to like conceptualize this without trying it in a game. I would suggest trying it in a game and then doing it over and over until you understand like what's happening here. Um, Especially with the third wave. So every 3 waves is a cannon wave, and you should plan for that before the wave hits the middle of your lane. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes. So what you're saying, you want to hard push the first 2 waves, crash into the tower so it slow pushes back for the
Right.
third wave.
Exactly.
Right, I get you.
Exactly. So that's not always the situation that you want to choose. That is just a route that you can take. it's
Yeah, I
it's
get
one
you. I get
option
you.
in this matchup. Exactly. Yeah. 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 The other thing I should mention, and this, tell me if this is too much information, but the minions themselves spawn every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it takes a few seconds to actually reach the middle of the lane. So when you're planning to either recall or roam or push or shove, knowing that like the third wave is going to be a cannon and it's coming, like you got 20 seconds to plan for it, you can play off of that knowledge and essentially plan ahead what you're going to do, right?
What do you mean?
So for example, you always want to recall on a cannon wave. Do you know why?
Because it takes about 8 shots for it to kill a cannon, so you come back to a full wave. If
So
it's
that's part
crashed.
of it, right? So let's say the cannon waves are coming and they're about to meet. It takes the other person, as in the Annie in this game, the longest amount of time to try to push that wave in. Let's say she knows you're gone, but it's a cannon wave, and you know this, and you start recalling before the cannon wave even gets to your tower. You have the maximum amount of time for that cannon wave to reach the lane, and you won't lose any XP. You'll get back
Yeah.
right in time. So if you can plan ahead that little bit, like knowing that, okay, I'm going to need a back soon, you can plan to recall, you can plan to roam somewhere, you can abuse this TP advantage that you've got, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That actually quite helped my back timing because a lot of times I
Yeah.
do back and miss like a full wave or half a wave.
Yeah. Think about like, okay, can I stay for this? Is there kill pressure? And when is the next cannon wave?
Right.
hmm
Shall I fast forward it again?
You could play. I mean, do you have any questions here, or like, um, is there any? Let's just watch. Maybe I can see some trade patterns happen. See what's, because there's like the micro elements of League. There's also the macro piece, right? Like scuttles would be considered macro, but it's your micro that enable those macro decisions, right? So it's so many layers of complexity.
Yeah. I feel like because Xerath is such a he has really bad mana issues at the start. I feel like I shouldn't even be trying to poke her at this point, but I do.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, right? Why do you think you shouldn't be poking her? Just because
It's
of the
just
you
a
want to preserve
waste.
your mana.
Yeah,
So, what would you be preserving your mana for?
the wave.
Okay. So you want to play the wave game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fair. You could play the wave game. One thing I would encourage actually is to auto the other champion so that you do play the wave game, right? Because the Xerath passive gives you more mana back when you auto a champion, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like, if that's the game style that you want to play, totally valid. I would just make sure that you're optimizing for one, when should I poke, right? If right now, like, what do you think is happening to this
That
wave
would
right
mean a
now?
good point. It's slow pushing, but actually, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's gonna slow push back into her.
Yeah. Do you know how to identify that before it happens? Like, if you go back, like maybe 5, 10 seconds, like what's
It's
happening to
really
this wave right now? You could tell for quite some time that this is about to slow push, right?
yeah because there's more minions on my side.
One, your cannon wave is healthier, and you've got more minions, so this is gonna start slow pushing back. Right now is the best time to be abusing this Annie because one, you have all the tempo. Your lane is going to slow push. She has to use her mana to stop the slow push, and you have TP. So you want to grab this gold. You want to get out as much damage as possible, and you want to slow push this wave in. So identifying that about the wave, like, will help you to do that, to play more of that poke style.
All right.
Yeah. So
I feel like
Mhm.
I shouldn't even be letting her walk up here.
Yeah, exactly, right? See? You know that. You know that at the replay. So yeah, don't let her walk up, man. Next time, kick her ass.
What am I doing?
Yeah, so like this is why watching the replay and then being like, wait, what am I doing? So one suggestion I have actually is if you do choose to deny her, optimizing your skill shots. What that means is right now, you should be aiming to hit the wave and hit Annie as much as possible because you're trading her HP for your timer and your mana for your timer. So you should shove that shit all the way into the
Yeah,
tower.
I realized that.
Mm-hmm. And you see Vi. So you know that Graves is fighting Vi right around the scuttle timer. That's probably something that will take some practice, right? Like 3:30 is that scuttle timer. So when you have that slow push that's happening, you can go to that scuttle fight, for example. The other thing I want to say is Xerath trade patterns, right? You want to start with your W. Do you know what I mean by when I say that?
W, so it slows them, and Q.
Exactly.
I don't really. But thing is, when I'm in my games, I don't actually think like that. I just think Ooga Booga land Q.
Yeah. So that's why like the biggest thing about like learning like a champion, learning league, learning a lane is like you have to have the champion knowledge to play it optimally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right here you should be hard shoving this.
It's really hard when your abilities are down.
Yeah. But that's where I would emphasize making sure that you're optimizing your skill shot. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, exactly.
So you're using all the ability. You're trying to get as much of a wave of one ability as you can.
Exactly. So when you know Annie has 0 HP and she's bot, that's when you gotta shove, and look for a play. Right now,
What would you do here?
right? That was exactly my next point. You should look for a roam, right? You have no reason to be sitting mid right now.
But there's nothing to do. So would you just back?
Let's see. So, do you know what happened bot and top? Like, do you know where they are? Did they recall?
Well, I have no vision on the map, so I would assume that they back.
Yeah. So that's another layer to add onto your decision making, right? So if you rewind about 10-15 seconds,
how do I bring that back up?
hit the eyeball on the bottom left, or hit X. I think X should also work.
No.
Okay, so hit the eyeball and then put scoreboard again.
Right.
Yeah. So the scrolling thing. Where did the scrolling? Oh, time controls. There you go. It's under scoreboard. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so let's rewind. What's happening in the game at this moment, right? Like, what just happened? Do you know?
Well, when I was.
Let's go back some more. Let's go back some more. Let's go back some more. Let's see what happened, and then you can say. Okay, so. Okay. Your Graves just died. Your bot lane's resetting.
Yeah.
And top lane is pushed in. So you know that a couple things are about to happen, right? One, Annie is back. She's probably recalled. Two, bot lane probably went back and recalled. And three, Aatrox also went back and recalled. So in the amount of time that it takes for you to push this lane out, you could roam to either bot or top because you know they're going to be coming back right now. Yeah. And they won't have it warded. Chances are it won't be warded because they just left. So
right, that makes sense.
So actually, you could do either rotation, and it'd be like the same. And even if you go there and like they're not there yet, just like letting your team know that you're there for a play might tell your Graves, hey, I should go bot. Xerath's roaming bot right now. Maybe there's a play that's going to happen bot. Graves is dead, but when he spawns and if you started to roam bot, it would line up. Or you could roam top and say, hey, jungler, come here, let's gank top, for example.
Right. So when wave shoved in, you really just want to look for players up along the
Hmm.
map.
So
Alright, I
there's a
get you.
couple ways to think about it. If you're shoved in, for
Yeah,
example,
that
if you
no,
mhm.
when you shove there with, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, when you shove their wave in, you should be looking for plays because tower damage like is a nice to have, but it's not like a need to have, right? Like you can barely chip away at towers in the early game right now. You kind of need more AP. You need that plating to wear off, that kind of thing. So like
Yep.
the tower damage, I don't know the exact timer unfortunately, but before a certain time, it's almost pointless to just be bashing on that tower. So when actually a couple of timers is good to look for. So one, when you're shoved in a high kill pressure lane like Xerath versus Annie, you could choose to give up some CS for a roam, or poke her down, push the wave, and look for a roam. That should be the play style that you're looking for in this.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think I chose to roam at any point this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I lane swapped a few times. That's about it.
Got it.
Yeah, I was just autopiloting,
Got
hitting
it.
the tower.
Yep.
It's because I never would have really looked before to look for a roam because when I see no vision on the map, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
to go. I don't think to go anywhere because I don't see kill pressure. But now I do.
Yeah. The main thing is that you have to understand your role as a mid laner, right? Um, Generally, when you're playing a control mage, like I wouldn't consider Xerath a control mage. He's more like artillery, poke mage, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you're not really reliable at getting kills, right? Like you're good at doing damage. You're great at poking. You're great at sieging. You're great at like setting up objectives, but you can't get kills reliably, right? So
Hmm.
oftentimes your roams don't have to be only for getting kills. You should think about like, okay, well, I'm playing Xerath. Is there any way I can support my team to get tempo advantage? Is there any way I can support my team to build an advantage to rotate towards Dragon? What is my Graves trying to do at this moment? Can I support him from a distance safely? Because you also are afraid of this lane, right? Like you're afraid that Annie's gonna flash Tibber, stun you, and you're gonna get screwed by Vi, right? So it
100%.
benefits you to exit the lane as much as possible.
Yeah.
Does that
Alright.
make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, I am winning this lane, but not really. Actually, when did she get?
She killed your Graves.
Oh, right,
What?
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see my mouse, by the way, my cursor?
I actually can't see your mouse, which is interesting.
How do I
Um,
fix it?
I'm not too sure why.
Shall I
Um,
try redo the stream?
that's okay. So, what are you trying to show me? Just curious.
No, I was just, it just helps for showing things. So
Ah,
it's
got
not
it.
something in specific.
Got it.
I, I think
Um, so we know there's a gank coming, but if I could make a suggestion, don't ward that bush. If you want to
why?
throw down a ward, you should ward the pixel bush.
But
Go ahead.
I don't want to argue about it, but my problem is because I
Hmm.
don't look at the map as much as someone as your level would. But
Fair.
with a pixel brush, I probably wouldn't realize until really late that they would come in. That would be coming.
Right. And that takes some practice, right? But
Yeah.
I would just say that this is just feedback. It's not like a personal attack by any means. It's more like, hey, when you went toward that bush, I would actually recommend warding the further bush because you did it when you knew Annie recalled, right? You knew Annie
Hmm.
recalled. You were pushing out the lane, and then you went toward. So that's why I'm saying when you know that there's lower kill pressure, get the deeper ward. That's what I'm saying. I want you to think about.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
another question.
Yeah.
With standing in this lane, would you always stand towards the side your jungler's on, or the side that you've warded, or both?
Yeah,
But
that's a
like
great point. So it depends. I wish there was a simple answer. So generally, mid laners, when you're playing like when you're in when the wave is like in the middle, right? Like if you're in
yeah.
this neutral state, playing towards the side of your jungler is the smart choice, right? Because if there is a fight or if you need his help, he can come quicker. When you're pushing out, it might benefit you to like figure out, okay, where is my jungler? What does that mean about where the other jungler is, right?
Hmm.
So generally, like what happens is junglers mirror each other, okay? So if you know that your Graves started bot and Vi started blue, they're going to be on the same side of the jungle at any given time, assuming they're clearing, right? So for example, right now, Graves is doing wolves, Vi just finished red. They're on the same side. So they're probably going to come from top side, right?
Yeah.
So not only playing to the side of your jungler, but thinking about, okay, where did they start? Where are they going to be? They're going to be on the same side. Does that make sense?
So I should have stood here realistically.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. I get you.
It's hard because there's so many layers, right? There's so many things to think about. But the more you like play mid lane, the more comfortable you'll get with some of these.
That was really poorly played.
Honestly, I don't think there's much you could do there. You don't have
True.
flash, you don't have barrier, and he's got stun. There's honestly not much you could have done other than saving your stun for the Vi, which I don't remember who you stunned there.
I stunned Danny, but
Okay.
it didn't really do it. It didn't do anything.
Got it. Yeah. So generally, when you're getting ganked, you kind of want to throw your skill shots out at whoever you can. But in this case, if there was one thing that I would have suggested is trying to stun the Vi, because the Annie's done. She's stunned you, right? She's done with her rotation. Now it's Vi
Yeah.
who's gonna try to kill you. Does that make sense?
I get you, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if I stun by before she gets a Q off of me, that's less CC to worry about.
It's also the only threat left, right? Annie has already used her cooldowns. Vi is gonna Q onto you. If you stun her and cancel the Q, what's left?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Really. So I could have survived that, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Could have, maybe, yeah, for sure. It would have been like a split second kind of thing, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, that's what League is, right? It's like those split second moments. So, yeah.
Point with the wave. Would you
Mhm.
just want to keep crashing it under tower on repeat just to stop the Annie from doing anything?
So let's talk through it. What do you think? I'll ask you that first.
I would say yes, and also
Okay.
so she can't roam and I can.
Okay. Any other reasons why?
And it makes it harder for the CS in the tower if I keep poking. This is how I win my lane, I would assume, because I
Uh-huh.
just outrange her and she has to CS.
But is that your goal?
Well, what would be my goal?
Right.
Other than winning lane by poking her?
Right.
Like
So,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
So
Carry on.
in the beginning, your identified condition was you can't really step up. You want to play the wave game and you want to build advantages through that. So there's actually
Yeah.
multiple answers to this question, right? One, do you want to now use your poke advantage now that you're kind of behind and Annie's going to hit 6? I would say no, actually. However, in this very given moment, Graves is planning to invade the jungle. So, if you wanted to help and or your wave is already pushing, there's a roam opportunity. You know that Vi just ganked you from top, right? Vi ganked you from top and probably finished clearing top and is probably pathing bot. So there is the potential for a fight there. So if your wave is pushing, shove it into the tower and try to support your Graves in the invade. That's one option, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to just think about lane and just focusing on the lane, then yeah, I would say actually probably push it and run the fuck away because she's strong now. She's stronger than you are. She could probably one shot you. And then there's
Yeah.
one more factor to consider that I haven't mentioned: summoner spells. Right? You blew her flash quite some time ago. Assuming you don't know the exact cooldown, you have to realize that, hey, she's hitting level 6. Flash is probably coming back up. So's Ignite. She could one-shot me because she's now stronger than me. So all of those things then help you decide, hey, should I just keep shoving in waves? Should I just poke her? Should I help my jungler?
Yeah.
Like those are the questions that I encourage you to ask yourself when you're trying to decide. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Let's pause. We've gone through a lot. I don't want to like it's just overburden it with too much information. Do you have any last minute? Do you have any last questions? Is there anything else that maybe I can help talk through?
Well, I have a question on champions actually
Yeah.
for the mid lane.
Yeah.
I really play like AP champions. I don't like AD. I play like
Okay.
LeBlanc, Fizz, Xerath. What would you recommend for me to actually play to get better?
Yeah. Are you pretty new, or what? Where are you at
I'm
with
not. I'm
League?
not
Yeah.
new. I've been playing the game for about half a year to a year between that period.
Okay. Um, I would say that if you're focused on learning, and it sounds like you are, right? Like you want to learn mid lane, you want to get better at mid lane.
Yeah.
Um, the goal is a combination of things, right? You want to make sure that you're having fun. You want to make sure that you're identifying types
Definitely.
of champions that you enjoy, right? Like what are types of champions that you generally enjoy? Are you more of an assassin player? Are you more of a simple champion? I
Well,
love killing people with R type of player. Like, do you
it's
like mages?
it's very weird, right? Because I play every type of champion except tanks. I play assassins to mages. I like Veigar. I like LeBlanc. I can't
Okay.
really choose between them.
Okay. Um. So I would say when you're learning a lane, to choose the champion that you have to spend the least time thinking about the champion itself and the most amount of time thinking about the game. So, depending on your goals, right? Like Vagar, let's take Vagar. Let's stick to Vagar for example. Vagar's pretty simple, right? Like you don't have too many skill shots. You don't have a lot of decisions that you can make because he's a simple kit, right? Versus a LeBlanc where her combos are super hard, she's very kill reliant, her scaling is not smooth. She's got a lot of challenges to be aware of. So
Yeah.
depending on your goals through the game, I would suggest learning one type of champion. Like stick to Vagar for a little while until you understand 3-wave bounces, until you understand jungle tracking, until you understand XP tracking, until you know what tempo is, until you understand different build paths on Vagar. And then start to think about, okay, maybe I can play LeBlanc now, right? Because you know what the wave's going to do. You know better how you want to maintain those
Yeah.
things. So it depends on where you want to spend your cognitive load, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. I get you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also
Um.
always the meta, right? Like there's the meta graphs that you can always check, and there's so many different tier lists that kind of tell you what's simple, what's hard, what's easy. It really is just what are you wanting to spend more of your energy on? Do you want to spend more
Yeah.
energy playing the champion or playing the game?
All right.
Was that helpful?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I've learned quite a lot.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay. Cool. Well, it was nice to meet you. Feel free, if you want to reconnect at any point, we can figure something like that out. But sweet.